Hello and welcome to the latest Agenda podcast from the Blood Red channel with myself, Matt Addison, alongside our Liverpool FC correspondent, Paul Gorst. I'm sure it hasn't escaped your notice that Liverpool have made two signings over the last few days, with Thiago Alcantara having already impressed at Stamford Bridge and Diogo Jota potentially to make his debut this evening against Lincoln City in the Carabao Cup. So what better time to get the inside story of how the two deals unfolded? Over the course of the next few minutes, we're going to take a look back at perhaps the most exciting 24 hours or so in terms of Liverpool transfers that there's been in a long time. Paul, welcome along to the podcast. We'll start with Diogo Jota, more because sort of most people will know more about Thiago than the Portuguese. We will come on to Thiago, of course, a little bit later, but a £41 million arrival, and it's almost gone a little bit under the radar.
It has, hasn't it? It's strange. I think it's obviously that's been taken up by the excitement of Thiago, a player who Liverpool fans have been hoping and wishing for the best part of 3 months. So they've had a long time to kind of steel themselves for the day that finally gets over the line and was it. So I think that is why the attention has kind of been taken away from Diogo Jota a little bit, and especially given the fact that not a lot of people knew it was happening today. I mean, we only really heard of interest up until, it was confirmed on the Saturday, and we obviously had the big news line on the Friday night that it was a done deal and he would be on his way. But this wasn't one that was weeks or months in the making, as far as our understanding went. It was all happened very fast, and these transfers do tend to happen like that. Sometimes Liverpool drew up a three-man shortlist with Diogo Jota. Ismaila Sarr was someone who we had initially reported on there being interest a couple of months back. And Jonathan David is the understanding as well from Genk, who went to Ghent. I always get Genk and Ghent confused for the obvious reason. He ended up going to Lille, so Liverpool had those three on the shortlist, but a lot of it was down to kind of Pep Lijnders and his role in the deal, and he's spoken today a little bit more about that in his press conference. The Lincoln game, and he was someone who kind of drove home the fact that this is someone who Liverpool really need. So very interesting day, as you say, in Liverpool's transfer dealings. Probably, I'd say, as exciting as it's been since Suarez and Andy Carroll came through the door in 2011 in terms of a day of pure incomings. So yeah, it's kind of the deals that Liverpool fans have been waiting and hoping for, and they will no doubt add two huge injections of quality in their respective positions this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think the deal very much came out of nowhere, as you said. Liverpool moved very quickly, it seems, to get that deal over the line. And Pep Lijnders, as you say, very much sort of sounding out his contacts over at Porto to try and get a bit more background on the player. I suppose that would have been a key reason why Liverpool was so keen.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, it was made aware to me that Liverpool have kind of kept tabs on Jota since Wolves were promoted to the Premier League, which was a couple of seasons ago now, wasn't it? And Jurgen Klopp was very impressed with his work rate, his willingness to press from the front, and his versatility. You know, all big green ticks in the boxes for Diogo Jota. And if you think of the Liverpool players, it's almost, a perfect fit, isn't it? Because Liverpool's front three are all very good on the ball, top quality players, but they've also got a huge work rate that kind of underpins that quality, which is something that not every elite player has, but they've certainly got it. So he's a player who kind of matches up well to that, and Pep Lijnders called him a pressing machine. But also, Lijnders, obviously, he worked for Porto for 8 years, I think. He's still only a particularly young coach himself, but he said that he actually played against Jota when they were younger players. So I think Lijnders might have been a little bit of a veteran at that time, or Jota was a very young player coming through, or maybe a mixture of the both, because I think there's about 10 or 11 years between them. But he's someone who Lijnders knows well, and he spoke to his contacts in Porto, who obviously had Jota for a season on loan in 2016-17, and he initially came from the city of Porto, and I think there's a Pacos de Ferreira, who a Portuguese team based near the city, I believe. So he spoke to the relevant people there, and it was all, glowing character references. And this is something that Liverpool do quite often, actually, in terms of their modern day recruitment now. It's very much a painstaking process. It's not just a case of seeing a player from afar and thinking that he's going to be good, so they throw a bid into their team. It's all very much calculated, and the personality checks are developed almost as much as the playability on the pitch. So we noticed it with Costa Shimmercast. That was something that was made aware to us. We were told about as well. So it's very much a staple of Michael Edwards' working, if you like, with players who were coming into the club to make sure that, yes, they're of the required standards from a playing standpoint, but these are going to be characters who are going to fit in well with the group, and it does seem to be that Diogo Jota is an ideal fit from everything that we're led to believe.
Yeah, extensive background checks have been made on him. And Jota's also got Champions League experience with Porto. He's obviously played in the Europa League with Wolves, and he's been at Atletico Madrid as well. I mean, how much do you think that would have played a part? Because I suppose as much as he's an excellent player, the background checks fitted, that experience of playing at the top level is quite important as well.
It is, definitely. I mean, I think if you look at Wolves in kind of the Premier League status at the moment, they are a very ambitious team who are kind of on the up, aren't they? They only got promoted was a couple of years back, and the players they're signing and the fees they're paying and the profile of player they're looking to attract is kind of a little bit above what most people might see them as at this stage, if that's not being a bit too disrespectful. You look at players like Ruben Neves and João Coutinho, it was kind of interesting that they were playing for a club like Wolves. But obviously they're an ambitious club who are looking to kind of grow over the coming years, and maybe Diogo Jota is someone who fits into that same kind of profile. As you mentioned, Eddie, someone who's played for Porto, why not Atletico Madrid? So he's not someone who has kind of come up through the leagues and he hasn't got any experience of playing for an elite European club, because he obviously has that. But I think he's on an ideal ground, and in terms of playing for the team who are still middle of the road as far as the Premier League is concerned, but also has played for a top European club. So I think there are so many facets of this deal are perfectly suited for Liverpool, and I think the fee is probably a little bit much, if I'm being 100% honest. But in terms of how the deal's structured and so on, it's not going to be something that's going to adversely affect Liverpool over the coming years. And I do think he's someone who's going to be a good fit in terms of when one of the front three drop out, it's not going to be a huge drop off in quality that has sometimes been the issue. I think if he fills in for, let's say, Roberto Firmino for 5 games on the trot, if Firmino's injured, it's not going to be a case of having a massive detrimental effect on Liverpool, because he's someone who is very good, and there's plenty of room to improve. And
yeah, only 23, and all the sort of comparison has been made with someone like Sadio Mane, a statistical clone of Mane, according to Dave Hughes on the Analysing Anfield podcast. And it does have to be said, they've come to Anfield at similar stages of their career, and the background numbers seem to suggest that they could be on a similar trajectory, which I suppose is the exact type of signing that Liverpool tend to make.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I think it's a kind of perfect storm for Liverpool. As underlying numbers fit in with players who they brought to the club before. So much talk now, isn't there, of like Will Spearman and Ian Graham in the research department, and they've obviously, looked at the numbers in an exhaustive amount of time. And then you've got the character checks from the likes of Lijnders, who've spoken to people who've coached them before, who've managed them before. And then you've got the all-seeing eye test, which is 2 years experience in the Premier League and playing for a very ambitious and up-and-coming team at Wolves. So it does seem as though there are a lot of things going for Diogo Jota, which is why Liverpool have brought him to the club. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see how he gets on and how Liverpool can kind of kick on in other competitions, really, because if you think if he's going to be playing quite a lot in the FA Cup, in the League Cup, then he's someone who would be good enough to kind of make sure that Liverpool go a little bit further into those competitions.
It's almost a signing similar, I think, to Takumi Minamino that we saw obviously coming in January. He can play in a couple of different positions. And just as a final point really on Jota, I suppose it's that versatility as well that's going to help him get minutes, because as you say, he doesn't just play off the left, he can play through the middle, he can play a bit deeper. It's just another one of those players where it's one that Liverpool have seen in the knowledge that they can do multiple jobs. Yeah,
undoubtedly. I think if you look across Liverpool's squad, pretty much everyone except for the centre-backs can play in at least two positions, and this is no different. Firmino, still not too sure where he's going to be best suited, but it does seem to be he's going to be a almost deputy to Roberto Firmino. Jota, his favourite position is probably where Mane is best at, but he can come in on the right if Salah drops out, or down the middle if Firmino drops out. And it's just one of the key characteristics for Jurgen Klopp play. You have to be able to operate in more than one or two positions, and it does seem to be that Jota is capable of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on a little bit to Thiago Alcantara, then the other player that Liverpool fans rightly getting very excited about. He wasn't an active target for much of the summer, but of course, we always knew that the market was very fluid and things could change. Yeah,
I mean, he's been linked for the best part of 3 months, hasn't he? But it was only last Monday when Liverpool finally reached out to Bayern Munich, and I think Liverpool might have been playing a waiting game, given that they did leave it so late. They were waiting to see if a few more millions come off the price tag as it got closer towards that transfer deadline. But it's our understanding that Bayern Munich made it clear that they wanted this situation done before the start of the Bundesliga defence, which kicked off with an 8-0 win over Schalke, didn't it? So it was all done and dusted quite early on. Liverpool spoke to Bayern on the Monday. He was a Liverpool player by the Friday afternoon. Jim Moxon, the club doctor, was dispatched over to Munich. So the medical the whole day of Friday, so Liverpool could register him in time for Chelsea. It was just a kind of one or two minor things he had to undertake when he came to Merseyside. And fantastic deal for Liverpool, an elite level midfielder. Probably, I think I wrote in the Blood Red column last week that he's probably Liverpool's most high-profile signing of the Premier League era. When you think of, he's only previously played for two clubs in Barcelona and Bayern Munich, two of the absolute biggest in the world, two-time Champions League winner. It's going to be great to watch him this season, and he came in and offered a tantalising glimpse, didn't he, with his 45 minutes at Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, absolutely exceptional in that game, and I think he's won 7 out of 7 league titles in Bayern, so he's certainly got that sort of level of pedigree. I mean, just on that, Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp would have been aware of the quality of Thiago, as everybody else was. I've seen him for most of his career playing at the absolute top level. But what do you think changed for Liverpool this summer in order for them to make that move? Was there something that did change, or was it, as you say, just more of a waiting game and waiting for the right moment in time?
Yeah, I've read something recently over the last couple of days that Liverpool, or Klopp rather, decided to give the green light on that move after watching him in the Champions League final. Liverpool were in Austria at the time, weren't they? There was a few beers and they were all sitting around watching the game, and that was where Klopp has decided to give the thumbs up. But I just think maybe the fact that Liverpool have been able to structure the deal in a certain way has probably been the biggest factor behind it, because 20 million initially with a 5 million up front is not a lot to pay for a player of Thiago's quality when you think of some of the sums that are banded about these days. But this is a sum that is unlike any other, and Liverpool they're not awash with cash. It's the reason why they kind of stayed clear and wanted their asking price pretty much up front. So I think that's probably been the biggest factor in the deal. Liverpool, as far as Jota is concerned, they're only paying around about a 10% guarantee of the overall sum this year, and it's kind of structured and staggered over the course of the contract, which has been a massive help to Liverpool at a time of such financial uncertainty. So I think something similar has been agreed with Bayern Munich, and that for me is probably what has been, the tipping point for Liverpool to go and get him.
We know there's going to be a delay in fans returning to Anfield now again, but we did see that you reported earlier in the week about Liverpool's night kit sales going possibly better than what they anticipated. Do you think either of those things could have influenced the deal at all?
No, I don't think so, because from the figures that I was made aware of earlier this week, it was that the home kits is up by 15% and the away kits is 30%, which is currently the highest selling away kit in the UK. But I don't think those kind of percentages mean that there's going to be, tens of millions rolling into the club as a result. And I'm not really, we're not accountants, are we? But we do seem to be talking about fact and figures a lot more these days in terms of Liverpool's balance sheets. But I don't really think that kit sales equates to money in the transfer kitty. It's probably redistributed in so many different ways, and there's so many different types of staff on the wage bill that it's impossible to say that is what has been a defining factor. But that those record-breaking numbers are obviously why Liverpool were so desperate to get in league with Nike, and why over the next 4 or 5 years it's going to be a massive deal for everyone concerned.
Yeah, one way that we do know Liverpool will have raised a little bit of money is the sale of Ki-Jana Hoever to Wolves. Obviously, still very highly rated at Liverpool as far as we're aware, but I suppose it's that first team experience, the opportunity to go to Wolves was probably too big for him to turn down.
Yeah, I think Ki-Jana Hoever kind of falls into the Ryan Brewster category of Liverpool so big on their potential and what they can achieve. But then you hear that Liverpool, aren't against selling Brewster. So I think if Liverpool are offered X amount of money for a player like Ki-Jana Hoever when, he's only made 4 senior appearances, then they see that as very business, despite the potential of him going on to become a player who's probably worth 30, 40 million in 3 or 4 years' time. I think that's just a gamble that Liverpool have had to take this time, because they're in a situation where, say, they're not particularly awash with cash. So it's 9 million down with an extra 4.5 million based on certain performance-based criteria, and a 15% sell-on clause, which could net Liverpool a tidy profit in years to come. But I think he's unfortunately just become a victim of the situation that Liverpool are in, where probably do need 1 or 2 additional first teamers, and have had to kind of sacrifice the young potential to bring that money in.
Yeah, signed for about £90,000 in 2018, so it's a fair bit of profit for Liverpool. But I suppose it's a reminder, really, that as much as there is a really elite group of young talents coming through at Liverpool, not all of them are going to make it into that first team squad. And part of it is Liverpool's business model to buy them cheap, develop them, and the academy almost pays for itself like this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've listened to a podcast of Alex Thorpe recently, and he said that. He said the academy isn't a charity, and they do have to kind of sing for the supper almost, and will only be, become invested in if they're showing results. So this is exactly it. For all the potential that some players do have, ultimately, there's only a small pool of players who are going to be good enough to come and play for Liverpool, particularly at a time now where they are arguably the best in the world. So if Liverpool can get huge profits on these players who they've kind of brought in for cheap and developed and honed over the years, then that ultimately is very prudent, sensible, and a good way of working.
And the lack of Hoever, of course, means there's one less option at senior level at centre-back. I think we both are on the same page here that Liverpool probably could do with another one in that position, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case at this stage.
It doesn't. No, I mean, I was told a couple of weeks back that, there is an acceptance that this is a fluid and unique market, which is kind of the phrase that was put to me. And that made me believe Liverpool were still kind of scanning the market for a potential addition to the defensive ranks. But given how well Fabinho performed at Stamford Bridge on Sunday, that's probably eased a lot of people's concerns over that. Jurgen Klopp wouldn't suggest that he was one of them, because I think he's been of the belief anyway that Fabinho was definitely someone who can fill in there anyway. But personally, I still would have liked to see them bring in one, quite cheap, relatively cheap and experienced, just to play, what is it going to be, 10 games a season maybe. But it looks like Liverpool are pressing on with the state of players as it stands, and will possibly look to do their centre-back business next summer when they're a little bit more clear about their overall budgets, and they'll look to maybe recruit someone of a younger age and someone who's going to be at the club for 5 years.
Yeah, and White, one of the names we know that Liverpool have taken a look at over the last 12 months or so. And we mentioned Ismaila Sarr as well. They've both been scouted by the club. I mean, we have seen in the past that Liverpool have looked at players. Muller, I think, was them that they wanted initially when he went to Chelsea, and didn't get him then, but went back. I mean, could you see a situation with either those two or other players where Liverpool could potentially revisit that interest?
Certainly with wider. I think I was made aware that Liverpool had kind of scouted him extensively while he was on loan at Leeds last season, but there was an acceptance that he was always going to sign the new contract with Brighton. And I think he's coming in as Shane Duffy's replacement at Amex this season. So I think not just Liverpool, I think there'll be other clubs kind of keeping a close eye on how he develops and how he gets on in his first full season in the Premier League. And if he does kind of continue on that upward trajectory, then I think we might see Liverpool kind of, you can't say returning to the table because they were never at it, but they're definitely keeping an eye on him. And they will continue to do that. And, maybe next summer it could be a case of he's someone who they do look at. Ismaila Sarr, I think, is a little bit different. I think it was, as we mentioned, him being on the 3-man shortlist. I think the fact that they've got Diogo Jota now means that they're going to likely to cool interest in Sarr, and going to be interesting to see where his next move is, because he's probably too good to be playing in the Championship. And I know Watford's manager came out after their League Cup defeat was it Newport, and said that he really counts on Sarr and looks like he's going to move on this window. So I would have thought that might be that as far as Liverpool's interest goes, but we shall see. Certainly not this window, at least, anyway.
Yeah, interesting stuff as ever. One to keep an eye on, and transfers, of course, always grab the attention of supporters. There was a couple of big ones in the last few days, and we will see what happens in the future. We'll be back, of course, across the Liverpool Echo and Blood Red this evening as Liverpool take on Lincoln. Plenty more content between now and then, of course, too. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, or leave us a review if you're listening to the show as a podcast. For now, though, from myself, Matt Addison, and from our Liverpool correspondent, Paul Gorst, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.